Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan, and today we are talking about the worst books that I read in 2022. Luckily, there aren't that many of them. I don't have that many books that I read this year that I actively want to rant about. I don't enjoy talking badly about books, but I do think this is a fun video to make just to remember the duds of the year, to share the books that I would actively not recommend you pick up, and to potentially discuss or debate if you have any differing opinions from me on any of these books. This should be pretty quick because I only have 6 books to talk about. I only had 3 one-star books this whole entire year, which I think is pretty good considering I've read over 170 books total. And then I have 3 notable 2-star books to talk about. I had more than 3 2-stars the entire year, but these are the 3 that I would most passionately not recommend, or I actually have something to say about why I disliked them as books. Before I jump in, the typical disclaimers: just because I did not enjoy these books doesn't mean that everybody doesn't enjoy them. And if you did enjoy them, I do not think that you are wrong or have any feelings about you as a reader or a person because you had a different experience from me. We can all like and dislike different books. I think that's awesome. I'm just here to give my opinion on these few books and tell you why I didn't like them. So the first book I want to talk about is a 2-star book. I read this summer. I had very high hopes and expectations for it based on great reviews that I've seen for this book. It's Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book was originally published in 2018, but it recently got a cover redesign, which I absolutely love. Love the cover of this book. And I think that kind of caused a resurgence of readers for it. And I saw a lot of my friends and people I follow either picking up this book for the first time or talking about this book, and a lot of them really loved it. This is a childhood friends to lovers romance. I believe we get alternating timelines where we see them in present day as well as in the past, when they spent summers together at their lake house with their families, forming a friendship, eventually forming a relationship, and then present day they are reconnecting after something drove them apart in their past. And that's the type of romance that I typically really enjoy. Childhood friends to lovers is one of my favorite romance tropes. And I also really enjoyed the book that is most often compared to this one that was published this year, called Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. What I did not like about this book was the thing that drove this couple apart. I don't think there are many things in life that are unforgivable, and I don't even know if I would say this thing was unforgivable. I just really don't feel like they gave enough attention and conversation to really digging into what happened and apologizing, making amends, healing through it. I feel like it was completely brushed over for how dramatic of an event it was and how much of an impact it clearly had on these characters. And so after that, I just didn't believe or root for the romance because I needed more resolution over what happened. So I know that's a little bit vague and hard to talk about without talking spoilers of the book. I actually read this book for a reading vlog, reading romances this summer, and I believe I did talk spoilers in that vlog, so I will link it below if you want to hear more of my spoiler-filled thoughts. But in general, I think Every Summer After did this trope better, and I was disappointed to not enjoy this book as much as everyone else I've seen has. My next worst book of 2022 is Family of Liars by E. Lockhart. This was a prequel that came out this year to a book called We Were Liars. That is a mystery thriller about this family who has multiple siblings, and they all have kids, and they all vacation together every summer on this private island. They're very rich and snooty. They've got their traditions, lots of family drama, and basically something happens that summer that changes everything for the family. I absolutely loved that first book, so I was very curious as to what this prequel was gonna do. I haven't found that prequels really work for me as a concept. I usually don't care all that much about backstory to characters and families, and this book really didn't do anything for me that I thought justified having a prequel. If you really, really liked the family dynamics of the first book and did want to know more about the adult siblings in their childhood and things they got up to in their rich family, then maybe you'd enjoy this book. But still, I thought it was just kind of a waste of time because we know where all of those characters end up as adults. So anything they were doing as children and teenagers didn't feel that high stakes because, again, we know where they ended up. So I didn't love that. And I also really didn't like the ending of this book and the twist it kind of tried to pull, but in my opinion was not a twist at all. I also think I read this book and featured it in a vlog, and I also think I talked spoilers in that video, so I will link that again so you can hear my specific thoughts on that twist and why exactly I don't think it's a twist. But very disappointing after loving this first book so much. And if you loved We Were Liars and were curious about picking up Family of Liars, if you don't care about that family's backstory, I would say skip it. maintain your love for We Were Liars. And then my last 2-star book that I want to talk about in this video is Losing Hope by Colleen Hoover. This is the second book in Colleen Hoover's Hopeless series. I read that all for a video, link it below. And that first book, Hopeless, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed it for being a very angsty teenage romance. The romance portion wasn't my favorite, but it kind of ended up going into more of like a mystery direction, and I really enjoyed that part of it a lot. This second book is literally just the first book told over again from the guy's perspective. This is something I have discovered this year that I absolutely hate and do not understand. Who is asking to read romances again from the other person's perspective? In my opinion, it's one thing if it's in the same book and you're alternating perspectives. Awesome. I love to see the feelings from both sides. But in this case, it's literally just the same conversations happening over again that I had just read in the first book. And the only reason I gave this book 2 stars instead of 1 is because there was a little bit of added information that we got about this guy's sister that we didn't get in the first book that I did think was interesting. I don't know if it warranted a whole nother book in the series without a continuation of the actual story, but I did enjoy that enough to bump it up from 1 star to 2 stars, but everything else about it was absolutely 1-star quality. And that brings me to my 1-star books of the year. I'm gonna start with another Colleen Hoover, unfortunately, this girl. This is the 3rd book in Colleen Hoover's Slammed series, and I hate it for all of the reasons that I just said I hate Losing Hope. This, again, is just the first book in the series told again from the guy's perspective. I don't know why it needed to exist, and this one is 1 star because it didn't have anything additional in it that we weren't already told in book 1. I don't think this is a trend unique to Colleen Hoover. I do think other authors have done it. Like, I think the Twilight series most recent book was Twilight told from Edward's perspective, and that was just somewhat recently published. So it's probably not going away as a trend. I just don't understand who wants that, who's asking for it. Maybe it's different if it's been several years since you read the first book, and me having read these in such close succession did it a disservice, but I still don't feel like it's necessary. I don't think I will ever be behind this trend, and I hope that I don't read any more romance series that do that. My next 1-star book is The Missing by Kirsten Modulin. I read this book for a readathon. I believe it was Thrill Till the Weekend. So again, I'll link the vlog below. And it may be useful to go and watch that vlog because I don't really remember a ton about this book or why exactly it was 1 star. I think I just had really high expectations from this author and from this kind of trope. It was 6 strangers who go to this island together under false pretenses and then end up stranded there. Not a super unique premise. Actually really similar to a book that's going to end up on my best books of the year list, but I feel like everything about this book could have been better. The writing could have been more interesting, the plot could have been in a more interesting direction. The twist I thought was so interesting that I needed way more time exploring that and seeing that play out, but instead it was just told and then over. And the main reason I gave this 1 star is just because I would for no reason recommend this book over any other book with a similar premise or plot. I think there is way better out there, and I was just not only dissatisfied after reading this book, I was actively like unsatisfied. I had a list of things that I wish were improved about it. It's not like the type of thriller where I read it and was like, all right, well, that was that, I'm gonna move on. I actually had things that I wish were changed about it, and that doesn't happen too often for me. And then the last book in this video, and probably what I would consider the worst book that I read this whole entire year, is The Husband's Secret by Leanne Moriarty. Off the bat, just based on the title, pretty clear that this is a domestic thriller, which admittedly are not my favorite in the first place. So maybe I should have known going into this book that I wasn't going to enjoy it, because I don't like domestic thrillers that are all about drama between couples and like people cheating on each other, keeping secrets from their spouses. I don't find that interesting or entertaining, so most of this book I did not enjoy for that reason. The other thing about this book that took it from general non-enjoyment to active disliking is I thought it was full of fat phobia. There's one somewhat main character in this book who is a woman who was previously overweight and has lost a bunch of weight and is skinny now. And apparently that made her more desirable and attractive in every way. And every single other character in this book had something to say about that. In general, I think I'm pretty forgiving of bad characters in books and characters with bad takes that can just be chalked up to them being bad characters. But in my opinion, when it's every single character, even side characters and characters that otherwise would be considered good, I don't think it's just a bad take from the characters. I think it's a bad take from the author. I don't think every character in here needed to say something about that woman's appearance and how it's changed her as a person, whether for good or bad or whatever they were trying to say. Like, just shut up about her weight. I didn't get it. I don't know if it reflects the author's views at all. That's not a call for me to make, but it annoyed me as I was reading the book. It came up so many times that I just couldn't ignore it and would so actively not recommend this book. I would say pick up literally any other domestic thriller with a very similar title. I don't think this book's plot otherwise had anything interesting or unique to bring to the table. So actively disliked, would not recommend, gave it 1 star. So that is it for my worst books of the year. Please let me know all your hot takes. Do you disagree with any of my thoughts here? Did you enjoy any of the books that I mentioned, or do you agree with me? Were there any books on this list that you were previously thinking about picking up but now you won't or will based on anything I said? I would love to know. I would also love to know any books that you really hated this year. Tell me your worst so we can compare and discuss. And I am very much looking forward to putting out my best books of the year very soon, so look forward to that. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else, so thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.